When I was young, me and my mama.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to talk to you about Apple's repatriation of their overseas funds. I decided I had to talk about it because a lot of liberals seem to be ignoring it. Instead, they've been shining the light on layoffs done by some companies. I'll get to that in a bit. First, I want to tell you guys about the repatriation of Apple and what it means for the American economy. So bottom line, what it means is Apple has a hoard of money stashed overseas because they didn't want to pay taxes on them. The new tax bill lowered their corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. So that has incentivized them to bring that money here to both gain good publicity with us and to help continue their growth domestically. So that $250 billion that they have overseas, they're gonna bring over initially paid $38 billion in tax just on that alone. Additionally, because of the new tax plan, they've been able to commit to domestic investments totaling about $40 billion over the next 5 years. They've also committed to adding 20,000 new jobs and building a new campus in which to educate app developers. Apple is already a leader in educating people how to code, and this will help further that education. To put into perspective how vital to the economy these app jobs are, in 2017, the iOS app economy created 1.6 million jobs for Americans and generated $5 billion in revenue for app developers. So all told, Apple's repatriation stands to contribute $350 billion to the US economy over the next 5 years, not including Apple's current tax payments and tax revenue generated from the sale of Apple products and employees' wages. It's by adding 20,000 new jobs within Apple itself, investing domestically in engineering and education, and by increasing growth in their app economy. And I'm not making this up, Apple is crediting this directly to the new tax reform bill. This is literally a modern day example of trickle-down economics working. The problem is far too many people are jaded on the concept of trickle-down economics. They feel it doesn't work because it hasn't always worked. What always works? Nothing. But here we are presented with a grand example of it actually working, and people want to shun it and refer back to the days where it simply didn't work, where companies passed off their savings to shareholders instead of their employees or the American people. Now let's shift focus to what a lot of people, mainly liberals, are focusing on instead of this repatriation. Here's one prime example that I see floating around, using the fact that companies are still laying off people as a way to say that the tax bill is not working, which is a fallacy. Now, I'm not going to be addressing all of these companies' layoffs, but I will be addressing all the big ones, including some of the smaller ones. Starting with Carrier. Some of you will remember that Carrier is the company that Donald Trump tweeted about after becoming president because they were moving their factory to Mexico. This literally stopped all of that, and they made a commitment to keep jobs there for 10 years. That commitment was for about 1,070 jobs. These layoffs presented in this meme were part of that agreement. After those layoffs, they still have 1,100 people employed. If you're doing the math at home, you'll know that that's a 30 job surplus over the 1,070 that was committed to. So Donald Trump kept the factory from moving to Mexico. So basically Carrier was added to this list as padding. Doesn't belong there. Next up, let's tackle retail all at once. On here you have Walmart, Sam's Clubs, and Macy's. Are we really gonna blame President Trump for the actions of consumers? Retail is dying. Why is that? It's obvious. People buy their crap online. They don't want to go to the supermarket. They don't want to go to Walmart. They don't want to go to Macy's. They want to do it all from the comfort of their home, and they want to pay less for it. Do you know what I do when I go to Macy's? This is exactly what I do in Macy's. Oh, how much is that face cream? Ah, $70, you say. $30, free shipping. Thank you. That's it. Window shopping. I don't buy things at Macy's. And if you buy things at Macy's, you're getting ripped off. So regardless of the tax bill, regardless of how much money you throw at these companies, they simply can't stay open if consumers aren't flocking to them. Let's move way down the list to Wells Fargo, which is closing 800 bank branches. First of all, does everyone forget about Wells Fargo and their corruption? They committed fraud on a massive scale. It's found that they had 1.4 million fake accounts created under real people's names in order to reach incentives. Wonder what happened to the public's trust and faith in that institution after this came out. Yeah, must be Trump's fault. Listen, after that scandal broke, I certainly would have never opened up an account at Wells Fargo. I'm not saying that's the only reason they're closing 800 branches, but I'm saying it's a big reason, and to put blinders on and blame Trump's tax plan is just childish. Next up, we have at&t, which is laying off people who works mostly in landlines. Landline. Who uses a landline? I don't have a landline in my apartment. I don't even have a phone jack in my apartment. Like, it's a brand new apartment and they decided to omit phone jacks. Also included in these layoffs are people working in their dish service installation. Do I really need to spell that out? Netflix, Roku. Again, this is a consumer driven event. People are streaming their TV these days. Less and less people are paying for cable or dish. So do you want them to keep these people employed sitting around doing nothing just for the sake of saying that jobs are being created or jobs aren't being lost? Let's be reasonable about this. So far, I hope you guys are seeing a trend here. We're talking about dinosaurs failing to evolve, or in the process of evolving, there have been casualties. And this is going to continue to happen no matter who is president. But let's keep going. There's a few more. GE is laying off 12,000 people in one fell swoop. Now, something that doesn't get mentioned when the story is brought up is that most of these jobs are outside of the United States. Here's another tidbit you should know. GE is by far the worst performing company in the Dow, down 44% this year. Yeah, their poor performance has nothing to do with the layoffs at all. All about Trump and his tax plan. Things are so bad with GE that the Dow is considering dropping them. Why is GE performing so poorly? Competition. GE went from being a groundbreaker, an innovator, #1, and didn't have much competition. Now the field is wide open and they're struggling to keep up. Next up, let's talk about GoPro. Laying off 200 people in their Karma drone division. Shocker. They've axed the Karma drone. It was a failure. And even the company's staple product, the GoPro itself, is floundering. So they axed the department altogether and will no longer be developing drones. They're going to go back to focusing on the action cameras that they're known for, and thus obviously have no use for employees who were dedicated to the drone project. Rather than lay the blame on politicians, let's focus on the shortcomings of what's essentially still a startup company. All right, the last two I'm going to focus on real quickly are Pfizer and Northrop Grumman. Two completely different industries. One is pharmaceuticals, the other is aerospace engineering. Grand total of 382 employees being laid off between the two. I'm only mentioning these guys because of the astronomical amount of money these guys make. They don't just make a lot of money, they continue to trend up. So we're looking at two uber successful companies. They're still laying people off. Over the past 5 years, Northrop Grumman's dividend has increased 82%. Their stock has risen by 365%. Listen, people, with restructuring, with growth, with innovation, there's going to be change. Change has consequences. We can't merely assume that just because a business is performing well or okay, or they get a tax break, they're not going to lay off any people. There are going to be people who become non-essential. If I open up a pizza shop and I'm successful with 10 workers who are able to make 500 pizzas a day, and eventually those workers are able to make 1,000 pizzas a day, but my demand is still 500 pizzas a day, I'm gonna have to lay off 5 people. I'm not gonna have 5 people standing around all day because it only takes 5 people to operate my business. I haven't lost revenue, but my productivity has doubled. Therefore, I need to cut my workforce in half. The real world, the real life, it isn't fair. It isn't fun. Tough decisions have to be made all the time. Let's focus on what we can control. The President of the United States can't control how successful or unsuccessful or how productive or unproductive any company is. Bottom line, no matter what Trump does, Obama does, people are gonna lose jobs. So we shouldn't ignore the fact that they also have the ability to bring jobs in. Let's argue.